The small alien research ship Gentle Current floated in the darkness of space like a dying firefly. Its beautiful bioluminescent hull, which normally glowed with soft blues and greens, now flickered weakly as systems failed one by one. Inside the vessel, panic was beginning to set in among the peaceful Kytherian crew. Chief Science Officer Dowdy moved gracefully through the ship's low-gravity environment, her six thin fingers working frantically at the communication console. Her species had evolved on a world with gentle winds and floating cities, and their bodies reflected this peaceful existence. She was tall and willowy, with large amber eyes that could see deep into space, and translucent skin that changed color with her emotions. "The quantum communication array is completely broken," Dowdy reported to her superior, her voice carrying the musical quality common to all Kytherians. "I keep trying to contact the science collective back home, but something is wrong. The signal is getting stronger instead of reaching our people." Expedition leader Morvek floated nearby, his skin shifting from its normal pale green to a worried blue. The Kytherians had been exploring space for thousands of years, but they were researchers, not warriors. They mapped star systems, studied cosmic phenomena, and helped other species find safe trade routes through the galaxy. The concept of violence was so alien to them that their language had no words for weapon, enemy, or war. "How bad is our situation?" Morvek asked, though he already knew the answer from the way the ship's lights were dimming. "Life support systems are failing," Dowdy replied, her skin now showing streaks of purple fear. "The reactor is becoming unstable. We have maybe 6 hours before." She didn't need to finish the sentence. The Kytherian leader made a decision that would change everything. "Send a distress signal anyway. Someone will help us. In all our centuries of space travel, we have never encountered a species that would ignore a call for help." Dowdy began broadcasting their emergency message. It was meant to be a simple request. Their ship was in trouble, they needed technical assistance, and here were their coordinates. A routine call that any civilized species would answer with repair ships and helpful engineers. But their damaged communication array had other plans. Instead of sending a quiet message to nearby Kytherian colonies, the broken system began broadcasting on every frequency it could find. The signal grew stronger and stronger, reaching across multiple star systems like a scream in the darkness. What should have been a whisper for help became a desperate shout that echoed through space. Far away, in a part of the galaxy that most civilized species try to forget about, the message reached the Sol system. This was where humanity lived, isolated and quarantined from the rest of galactic society. The humans have been classified as Deathworlders after first contact decades ago. The Galactic Council had taken one look at their violent history, their warrior culture, and their ability to survive on a planet that would kill most other species, and decided they were too dangerous to interact with peaceful civilizations. Admiral Timin was reviewing battle reports in his quarters aboard the massive warship Thunderstrike when the alien transmission came through. He was a typical human military officer, broad and muscular from a lifetime of training on Earth's high gravity. His face was weathered from years of commanding ships in the dangerous outer systems where humans had been forced to expand after being banned from civilized space. "Sir, we're receiving an alien distress call," Communications Officer Hygiene announced over the ship's intercom. She was young but experienced, having served on human vessels since the quarantine began. Her fingers worked quickly over the translation computers, trying to make sense of the alien language. Taemin hurried to the bridge, where his officers were gathered around the communication station. The message was fragmented and partly corrupted, but the desperate tone came through clearly. "Systems failing. Require immediate assistance. Life support critical. Coordinates attached." "Where did this come from?" Taemin asked, studying the translation display. "Sector 847, Admiral." Hygiene replied, "That's deep in civilized space, way outside our quarantine zone." The Admiral's expression grew serious. For decades, humans had been forbidden from entering the civilized parts of the galaxy. Automated warning systems would alert the Galactic Council if they even approached the border. But someone was dying out there, and every human military officer was trained with one absolute rule. You answer distress calls, no matter what. "Sir," another officer spoke up hesitantly, The Galactic Council's restrictions specifically forbid us from entering their space. If we respond to this, we could be seen as invading. Taemin looked at the message again, seeing the desperate plea for help hidden in the alien words. He thought about the peaceful species out there who had never known violence, who probably had no idea that humans even existed. They were in trouble, and they had called for help. Signal the entire Third Fleet, he ordered, his voice firm with decision. Plot a course for those coordinates. Someone needs our help. But, sir, the quarantine dash and officer began. No one dies on our watch. Taemin interrupted. That's not negotiable. Prepare for immediate departure. Across the Sol system, 127 human warships began powering up their engines. They were massive vessels built for war, bristling with weapons and armor plating. To humans, they represented protection and rescue capability. To any peaceful species, they would look like the stuff of nightmares. Neither the dying Kytherians nor the responding humans had any idea they were about to make first contact in the worst possible way. The human fleet gathered in space like a pack of metal wolves preparing for the hunt. 127 warships hung in the darkness around Earth's moon, their hulls gleaming under the pale light. Each vessel was a monument to human engineering and warfare, built not for peaceful exploration, but for the brutal conflicts that had shaped humanity's expansion into space. Admiral Taemin stood on the bridge of his flagship Thunderstrike, watching as more ships arrived through hyperspace jumps. These weren't the elegant, artistic vessels that civilized species built. Human ships looked like what they were, weapons of war, angular and aggressive, covered in armor plating and bristling with enough firepower to crack open planets. Captain J1 commanded one of the smaller destroyers called Iron Fist. His ship was designed for fast attacks and heavy damage, with cannons that could punch through the strongest shields. J1 himself looked like most human military officers, scarred from battles, with the hard eyes of someone who had seen too much combat. His crew was the same way, veterans who had fought in the mining wars and border conflicts that kept breaking out in humanity's isolated corner of space. Run full diagnostics on all weapon systems. J1 ordered his weapons officer, Lieutenant Su Bin. She was young but deadly skilled, able to target multiple enemies while the ship twisted through combat maneuvers. I want every cannon, every torpedo tube, every defensive system working perfectly. Yes, sir, Su Bin replied, her fingers dancing over the weapon controls. All systems show green. We could level a city if needed. In the engineering section, Min Ho was reinforcing the ship's armor plating. He was a genius with technology, able to fix anything and make it stronger. His modifications had saved the Iron Fist in 3 different battles. If we're going into unknown space, we need to be ready for anything, he muttered while welding extra plating over critical systems. None of them realized they were preparing to meet beings who had never seen a military ship, never heard a weapon fired in anger, never even imagined that intelligent creatures might choose to hurt each other. Fleet Commander Eun-ji coordinated the massive formation from her heavy cruiser Steel Storm. She was one of the few humans who had tried to study alien cultures before the quarantine, and she understood better than most how different humanity was from the rest of the galaxy. Her ship was equipped with the most advanced sensors and communication equipment in the fleet. Admiral, Eun-ji reported over the fleet communication channel, all ships are in position. We have destroyers for fast response, cruisers for heavy support, and carriers with fighter squadrons ready to launch. The entire Third Fleet is prepared for combat operations. But then her communications officer detected something troubling. Ma'am, we're receiving automated warnings from Galactic Council beacon stations. They're telling us to turn back immediately. Eun-ji listened to the translated messages with growing concern. The warning spoke of contaminating peaceful space and protecting civilized species from dangerous contact. The automated systems were designed to keep humans away from the rest of the galaxy, treating them like a disease that might spread. Forward those warnings to the Admiral, she ordered. On the flagship bridge, Admiral Taemin studied the warning messages with a mixture of anger and sadness. For decades, humanity had been treated like monsters by the galactic community. They were called Deathworlders, a term that marked them as too violent and dangerous to interact with peaceful species. The quarantine had forced humans to develop alone, fighting each other for resources and territory, while the rest of the galaxy enjoyed peace and cooperation. "Sir," his navigation officer reported, "the beacon systems are actively trying to block our hyperspace routes. They're treating our rescue mission like an invasion." Tae-min looked at his tactical display, which showed the formation of human warships. To him, it looked like a well-organized rescue fleet, ready to handle any emergency. Each ship had specific roles, some for defense, some for rescue operations, some for providing medical aid. It was exactly what any competent military would send to help strangers in distress. But he tried to imagine how it might look to species that had never seen war. 127 ships built for destruction, arriving in perfect attack formation with enough weapons to conquer entire star systems. It would probably be terrifying. "Admiral," Fleet Commander Unji called, "What are your orders?" "The warnings are getting stronger. Some of the automated systems are threatening to alert the entire Galactic Council if we proceed." Tae-min thought about the alien distress call they had received. Somewhere out there, people were dying. Their ship was failing, their life support running out. They called for help, not knowing that their message would reach the one species the galaxy feared most. "Someone is in trouble," the Admiral said quietly. "They call for help. It doesn't matter what the galaxy thinks of us, or how scared they are humans. We don't abandon people who need rescue." He opened a channel to the entire fleet. "All ships, prepare for hyperspace jump. Ignore the warning beacons. We have people to save." "But sir," his communications officer protested, "they're calling us contamination. They think we'll corrupt their peaceful space just by being there." "Then they'll learn something today," Tae-min replied. "They'll learn that even Deathworlders have honor." The massive human fleet engaged their hyperspace drives simultaneously, disappearing from Sol system in flashes of distorted light. Their destination was a small research vessel full of peaceful aliens who had never imagined that creatures like humans could exist. The greatest misunderstanding in galactic history was about to begin. Dr. Vextai floated peacefully in the science lab of the Gentle Current, studying patterns of light from distant stars. The elderly Kytherian scientist had spent most of his long life cataloging the beauty of the universe, recording how stars were born and died, mapping the gentle dance of planets around their suns. His translucent skin glowed with the soft green color contentment as he worked at his favorite task. The harsh sound of proximity alarms shattered the quiet like breaking glass. Vextai had never heard such an urgent warning in his 40 years of space travel. The Kytherians were careful explorers who avoided dangerous areas, and their ships were equipped with the best sensors in the galaxy. Nothing should be able to surprise them like this. He rushed through the ship's corridors, his long limbs carrying him quickly in the low gravity. Other crew members were emerging from their quarters, their skin colors shifting to worried blues and purples. They looked to him for answers, but he had none to give. At the sensor station, junior researcher Limar stood frozen in terror. She was young, barely finished with her education, and this was her first deep space mission. Her skin had turned the deep purple that Kytherians only showed when facing death itself. "What is it?" Vextai asked, though the fear in her eyes already told him it was something terrible. "Ships," Limar whispered, her musical voice cracking with emotion. "Enormous ships. More than I can count. They're coming straight for us." Vextai moved to the sensor display and felt both his hearts stop beating. The screen showed dots of light approaching their position, but these weren't the gentle curves of exploration vessels or the elegant designs of trading ships. These were angular, aggressive shapes that hurt to look at. Each one was larger than the biggest Kytherian city ships that housed millions of people. But size wasn't what terrified him most. It was the energy readings. The computer was struggling to measure the power output from the approaching fleet. These ships carried enough energy to destroy entire planets. The weapons' signatures were unlike anything in the civilized galaxy's databases. "By the eternal stars," Vextai breathed, "what are these things?" More crew members gathered around the sensor station, their skin colors shifting through the spectrum of fear. Expedition leader Morvek arrived, took one look at the display, and immediately began praying to the ancient Kytherian spirits. "Are they pirates?" asked Daldi. though even as she spoke, she knew pirates didn't travel in fleets of over 100 ships. "No," Vextai said slowly, studying the formation patterns. "Pirates are chaotic, disorganized. This is a military fleet, a conquest fleet." The word military sent shock waves through the crew. The Kytherians had heard rumors of such things existing in the dark corners of the galaxy, but they had never encountered actual warriors. Their people had been peaceful for so long that they had no weapons, no defenses, no understanding of combat beyond ancient historical texts. "What do they want with us?" Limare asked, tears streaming down her face. Vextai looked at the massive fleet approaching their tiny research vessel and felt despair wash over him. "Everything," he said simply. "They want to conquer us." The old scientist made a decision that would echo across the galaxy. "Begin broadcasting surrender terms," he ordered, his voice shaking. "All frequencies, all languages we know. Maybe if we give up immediately, they won't kill us all." The crew moved to comply, sending messages of submission and surrender into space, begging the approaching fleet for mercy. They offered their ship, their research, their lives, anything to avoid the horrible fate they imagined awaited them. Meanwhile, on the human flagship Thunderstrike, communication specialist Du Hyun was having the worst day of her career. She was young and brilliant, fluent in dozens of human languages, an expert with the translation computers. But the alien messages she was receiving made no sense at all. "Admiral," she called out, confusion clear in her voice, "we're getting transmissions from the ship. We're trying to rescue. The computer is having trouble with the translation, but it keeps showing words like surrender and submission and please don't kill us." Admiral Timin left his command chair and walked over to her station. He was a veteran of many rescue missions, and he had never encountered anything like this before. Surrender? We're here to help them. Why would they surrender to rescuers? Tactical Officer Woojin checked his sensors carefully. "Sir, I'm not detecting any other ships in the area. No pirates, no enemies, nothing that would make them afraid. Just us and the disabled research vessel." The Admiral scratched his head, genuinely puzzled. In all his years of military service, he had never encountered the concept of surrendering to people who were trying to save you. It made no sense from a human perspective. Maybe it's a translation error, he decided. Their computer systems are probably damaged along with everything else. Let's get closer and see if we can establish proper communication. He turned to his fleet coordinator. "Signal all ships. Take us in slowly, but keep weapons power down. We don't want to accidentally seem threatening to people who are already scared." The order went out to the entire human fleet. Weapon systems that could crack planets went into standby mode. To the humans, this was the ultimate gesture of peaceful intentions. But to the Kytherians watching through their sensors, it looked like something far more sinister. The massive fleet was approaching in perfect attack formation, weapons at ready but not firing yet. To their terrified minds, it looked like predators who were so confident of victory that they didn't even need to waste energy charging their weapons. The greatest misunderstanding in galactic history was growing worse by the minute, and neither species had any idea how to stop it. The space around the disabled Kytherian research vessel suddenly filled with the terrifying sight of the human fleet emerging from hyperspace. 127 warships materialized in perfect formation, each one appearing exactly where it was supposed to be. The coordination was flawless, the positioning precise, the tactical arrangement beautiful in its deadly efficiency. To Admiral Taemin and his officers, this was simply how you conducted a proper rescue operation. You arrived ready for anything, with your ships positioned to protect each other and the vessel you were trying to save. Every escape route was covered, every angle of approach secured. It was textbook military doctrine, practiced thousands of times in human naval academies. But to the peaceful Kytherians watching from their failing ship, it looked like the end of everything they had ever known. Expedition Leader Morvex stared at the tactical display in absolute horror. The enemy fleet had appeared instantly, without warning, in a formation that spoke of military precision beyond anything in civilized space. These weren't random pirates or desperate raiders. This was an organized invasion force with the discipline and coordination of a species bred for war. "They're surrounding us," whispered Daldie, her skin now a sickly gray-colored despair. "Look at how they position their ships. Every angle is covered. There's no escape." Morvek realized with growing terror that they were witnessing something that existed only in the darkest legends of galactic history. For centuries, civilized species had whispered about the quarantined Sol system, where violent creatures called Deathworlders had been imprisoned to protect the peaceful galaxy. Most people thought they were myths, cautionary tales told to children about what happened to species that chose violence over cooperation. But the evidence was right there on the sensors. These ships were built for one purpose only: destruction. Their hulls were armored like fortresses, their weapon signatures red like planet killers, and they moved with the coordinated precision of apex predators. "Send emergency broadcast to every Kytherian colony," Morvek ordered, his voice breaking with emotion. "Warn them. Tell them the legends were true." He opened channels to every frequency his damaged communications array could reach, sending out desperate warnings across multiple star systems. "This is Expedition Leader Morvek of the research vessel Gentle Current," he broadcast. "The Deathworlders have come. They travel in massive fleets of warships beyond counting. They have found us in deep space, and their intentions are clearly hostile. All civilized species must prepare for invasion." The message spread across subspace like wildfire. Kytherian colonies received it first, their peaceful populations immediately beginning evacuation procedures. But the warning didn't stop there. It jumped from system to system, carried by automated relay stations that had been built to spread emergency information as quickly as possible. Within hours, 3 entire star sectors were in panic. The Veltheri Trade Federation began moving their ships away from the borders of human space. The Zephyr Diplomatic Corps sent urgent messages to every government they had contact with. The peaceful Mordanian mining colonies started loading their families onto evacuation ships, abandoning facilities they had spent generations building. Everyone had heard the stories. The humans were a species so violent that the Galactic Council had been forced to quarantine them in their own system. They came from a world so dangerous that it had tried to kill them at every turn, creating creatures that saw violence as a solution to every problem. And now, according to the terrified broadcast from the Gentle Current, they had broken their containment and were invading civilized space with a massive war fleet. Meanwhile, on the human ships, confusion was growing by the minute. Admiral Timin stood on his bridge, trying to understand why a simple rescue mission was becoming so complicated. "Are we getting any communication from the ship we're trying to help?" he asked his communications officer. "Any indication of what kind of assistance they need?" Communications specialist Du-hyun shook her head in frustration. "Sir, they're broadcasting constantly, but none of it is directed at us. It's like they're sending messages to everyone except the people who are actually here to help them." Lieutenant Commander Young-soo was monitoring the subspace channels and reporting increasingly strange readings. "Admiral, I'm detecting massive communication traffic spreading out from this position. Whatever they're broadcasting, it's being relayed across multiple star systems." From her escort cruiser Silver Arrow, Captain Miare offered a possible explanation. "Sir, maybe they have complex bureaucratic procedures for accepting help. Some species need to get approval from their government before they can interact with outsiders. They might be coordinating their rescue efforts through official channels." Admiral Taemin nodded, though he still felt confused. "That makes sense. We've heard that civilized species have complicated rules about first contact and diplomatic protocols. Maybe they need permission before they can talk to us directly." Tactical Officer Wu Jin was studying the sensor readings from the alien ship. "Sir, their power systems are definitely failing. Life support is getting weaker by the hour. Whatever bureaucratic process they're following, we need to help them soon, or it won't matter." "Agreed," the Admiral replied. "Move the fleet into standard rescue formation. Prepare boarding shuttles with engineering teams and medical personnel. If they won't talk to us directly, we'll just have to show them we're here to help." The human ships began moving closer, their formation shifting to provide maximum protection for rescue operations. Engineering crews prepared their equipment, medical teams readied their supplies, and shuttle pilots ran through their approach procedures. Neither species understood what the other was thinking. The humans saw a straightforward rescue mission complicated by alien bureaucracy. The Kytherians saw an invasion fleet positioning itself for conquest, while the rest of the galaxy mobilized in terror. The misunderstanding was spiraling completely out of control, and no one knew how to stop it. The breakthrough that saved both species from disaster came from the most unlikely person aboard the Gentle Current. Jean was a young Kytherian linguist who had always been considered slightly odd by her peaceful people. While other Kytherians studied beautiful things like star formations and cosmic music, she had chosen to research what her professors called theoretical dangerous language structures. Most Kytherians thought her work was pointless. Why study how violent species might communicate when violence itself was impossible to understand? But Jean had always been fascinated by the idea that somewhere in the galaxy there might be creatures who thought differently than her people did. As panic filled the bridge of the research vessel, Jean listened carefully to the transmissions coming from a human fleet. While everyone else heard terrifying threats, she noticed something strange about the word patterns. "Wait!" she called out suddenly, her skin shifting to the bright yellow of excitement. Everyone stopped talking for a moment, listened to their transmissions again. The bridge fell silent as Jean worked frantically with the translation computer. Her years of studying aggressive language structures had taught her to look for specific types of words and phrases that violent species might use. "They're word patterns," she said, her voice growing more confident. "They're not using conquest terminology at all. Where are the threats? Where are the demands for surrender? These are helping words." Expedition leader Morvek looked at her with desperate hope. "Are you certain?" Jean nodded, her fingers flying over the translation controls. "Look at this phrase pattern. In aggressive languages, this would be a demand. But in their language, it's a question. They're asking us something, not telling us something." She took a deep breath and opened a communication channel to the human fleet. Her voice shook as she spoke the words that would change galactic history forever. "Human ships," she broadcast carefully, using the translation matrix to convert her words. "Are you here to assist us?" The response came back immediately, clear and strong through the communication system. Admiral Timin's voice carried none of the harshness the Kytherians expected from a conqueror. "Affirmative," the Admiral replied. "We received your distress call. What do you need?" For a long moment, nobody on the Kytherian bridge could speak. Then Dr. Vextai began to laugh. It was a sound like wind chimes dancing in a gentle breeze, expressing wonder and relief and amazement all at once. "They came to rescue us," he announced to his crew, his skin shifting to the golden color of joy. "The Deathworlders came to rescue us." What happened next amazed both species. The humans, finally understanding that the aliens weren't hostile, began their rescue operations with efficiency that bordered on miraculous. Captain J1's engineering team from the destroyer Iron Fist worked alongside Kytherian scientists to repair the damaged vessel. Engineer Minho, whose modifications had saved his ship in countless battles, found himself working next to a Kytherian technician named Polki. Despite coming from completely different worlds, they discovered they both loved elegant solutions to complex problems. Minho would suggest a repair using human military efficiency, and Polki would refine it using Kytherian precision, creating fixes that were better than either species could have managed alone. Lieutenant Subin, the weapons officer who could target multiple enemies in combat, found herself surrounded by fascinated Kytherian researchers who wanted to understand human military thinking. "Why do you arrange your ships this way?" asked junior researcher Limare, pointing to human fleet formation on a tactical display. "We organize this way because threats can come from any direction," Subin explained patiently. "The formation protects everyone. Each ship covers the blind spots of the others. But what if there are no threats?" Limare asked, genuinely curious. Subin smiled, understanding for the first time how different their peoples were. "Then everyone gets home safely anyway," she replied. "It's better to be prepared and not need it than to need it and not be prepared." The young Kytherian's eyes widened with understanding. "So your weapons and formations aren't for attacking. They're for protecting." "Exactly," Subin said. "Everything we do is designed to keep people safe." As the repairs continued, something wonderful began happening across the galaxy. The same communication networks that had spread panic about a Deathworlder invasion now carried a different message. The humans weren't conquerors at all. They were protectors who had risked violating galactic law to save strangers in need. The story spread from system to system. Species that had been preparing for war began to reconsider everything they thought they knew about the quarantined humans. Here was a fleet powerful enough to conquer entire sectors, but they had used that power only to rescue a single disabled research ship. Admiral Timin stood on his bridge, watching as the gentle current was carefully positioned in the center of the human protective formation. The little research vessel looked tiny, surrounded by massive warships, but it was the most important thing in the galaxy at that moment. Set course for the edge of civilized space. He ordered his fleet. Let's get our new friend home safely. As the combined fleet began moving toward Kytherian territory, Admiral Timin opened a personal communication channel to Dr. Vextai. Doctor, he said, your people saved us as much as we saved you. You showed us that not everyone in the galaxy sees us as monsters. And you showed us, Vextai replied, that strength can be used to protect instead of destroy. For the first time in galactic history, Deathworlders and civilized beings were working together, traveling together, learning from each other. The quarantine that had separated them for decades was finally beginning to break down, not through conquest or politics, but through simple kindness between strangers. The galaxy would never be the same.